Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome. Welcome to Transformational Tuesday, where on the first Tuesday of every we discuss principles and practices to expand our thinking and to transform our lives. Thank you guys for being with me from January of this year, and thank you guys for all your comments and feedback. I appreciate it. This month, I'm asking for Transformational Tuesday, what is it that you need to renew? We're going to be talking about renewal. It's spring, right? So for those of us who live in places that are a little bit cold, we're welcoming the warm weather. We're welcoming renewal of sorts. We're seeing the birds are out, they're chirping. We're seeing that, the grass is blooming. The trees are flowering. It's springtime. We think about renewal when it comes springtime. For those of us who celebrate, who are religious and celebrate different faiths, it's also Easter time, right? So we celebrate Easter and the rebirth. So springtime is a type of renewal. It's a time of rebirth. And what is it that you need to renew? I wanted to talk about renewal, and specifically tonight, renewing of the mind, which is so important because we think about spring cleaning and cleaning up, and we think about renewing our passports and our licenses and renewing all these types of things. But how often do we think about actual renewal of our mind? And I got to thinking about it not only because it's spring, but I got to thinking about it because of a conversation that I had recently. It was an enlightening conversation. It was a personal conversation. I was speaking to someone who I know for a very long time, and the person found themselves in a bad situation, a bad circumstance. And while I'm an empathizer, and I try to sympathize and empathize as much as I can, this is somebody who I've known for a very long time and who started to blame everybody else for the reason why he is in this terrible circumstance. Now, mind you, this circumstance isn't something new. It isn't something that he's just found himself in 1 year or 2 years. This is a circumstance that he's been in for about 10 years, about 15 years. So I started to ask him, well, okay, this has been happening over and over. What are you doing to change the circumstance? And I started to get cursed out because I asked him what he's doing to change his circumstance. I said, you know what? If you're going through something not 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, but 10 years and 15 years in a row, you have to think differently about how you're going to approach the situation. You can't expect that you're going to solve new problems with old thinking. You can't even expect that you're going to solve old problems with old thinking. In order to solve problems or solve poor circumstances or get ourselves out of anything that we may be facing or faced with, we have to think differently. That's the only way we can solve our problems. If we've been having a problem for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and we've been approaching it the same way, thinking about it the same way, and nothing is happening for us and nothing is changing for us, we need a renewal of our minds. I couldn't get through to this person. This person started to the conversation went downhill. Let's just say that. The conversation went downhill. So I quickly had to end the conversation. And it was sad for me because I was trying to get from this person and have this person to change his perspective, to see things a little bit differently. And I wasn't upset with where he is at all. I wasn't upset with where he is. What I was really dumbfounded about is that he didn't even want to open his mind to hear a different perspective. He didn't even want to open his mind to hear a different suggestion. Now, did he have to take my suggestion, or did he have to see things from my perspective? Definitely not. Definitely not. I'm never, ever asking anybody to do that. All I ask people to do is look at things different. You can hear me out and you can listen to my perspective without adopting it. Because you listen to a different perspective, that doesn't mean you have to take it. You don't have to run with it. You don't have to adopt it. You don't have to apply it. But if you're in the same situation over and over and over, maybe you can open your mind to listen to somebody else. Maybe you can change your perspective. So that's what I want to talk about tonight, renewal. How often do we think about renewing our minds? And this is an interactive type of exchange. So go ahead and comment, go ahead and share this post and join it. Let's have a discussion. Yes, a closed mind is extremely difficult to deal with, and I agree, and I fully understand. So today, that's why I wanted to discuss renewing of the mind. If you're facing a circumstance that you have dealt with over and over and over again, perhaps it's time to renew your mind. Look at things differently if you can. Ask somebody else who you consider wiser than you, who you consider more mature than you, someone else who has been in a similar situation and who has solved their situation, if they can help you. How can you help me to see things from your perspective? How were you able to change your life and turn things around? How did you think differently? You see, a lot of times we are in the same environments, we are around the same people who are doing the same things that we did 10 years ago. How do we change then if we are around the same friends? And I'm not saying that you should drop your friends. If we're in the same environments, if we're doing the same things, how do we then expand our mind? First of all, I want you to know this. Your mind control, your thinking, your mindset is yours. No one else controls that for you. If there's one thing that you control and you have power over, it is your mind. I don't care what you were taught. I don't care what you were taught in school. I don't care what you were taught by your parents. I don't care what was spoken into you when you were a child. When you become of a certain age and a certain level of maturity, you take that back. You say, I have control of my mind, because your mind controls everything. Your mind controls your thoughts. Your thoughts controls your actions. Your actions controls your behavior. Those things controls your habits. So if you can't change your mind, you can't change how you act. You can't change how you live. You can't change how you behave. You can't change your habits. So we have to start first with renewing our mind, especially when we find ourselves in difficult situations, when we find ourselves in things that's not changing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a difficult situation. It could be a situation where you are constantly growing. You are growing. You know what you needed as a 6-year-old is going to be different than what you needed as a 16-year-old. It's going to be different than what you're going to need as a 26-year-old. It's going to be different than what you're going to need as a 36-year-old. And each version of yourself is going to need a greater expansion of your mind. Each version of yourself is going to require that you think differently, that you expand your thinking, that you get out of the box or the environment or the negative thoughts, whatever it is that got you to where you're at. And even if everything was really totally good and your life has been going great, you've made a plan, you've followed a plan, you're really successful, in order to level up, in order to get to your next level, you also need to renew your mind. You need to renew your thinking. How do you do that? For some of you on my timeline, go ahead and comment. Again, this is interactive. How do you renew your mind? You know, it can get really frustrating when you see people doing the same things over and over. A couple of years, yeah, okay, you can tolerate it. 10 years, a decade, really? 15 years? Really? Doing the same thing? How can we help people to expand their mind? No, we can only offer help. We can't make anyone change. We can't force anyone to change. People have to realize, all of us, as a matter of fact, have to realize that we must renew our mind. As much as I'm trying to learn and I'm trying to grow, every year, every month, every day brings a new opportunity for learning, a new opportunity for expansion, a new opportunity to change our minds. You know, I was thinking about it recently as well. Changing our minds are not only in respect to our circumstances that we may find ourselves in, good circumstances or bad circumstances, or just wanting to level up. Changing our minds or renewing our minds also have to do a lot with the relationships we have with others. For example, how many times I was thinking back at this, I was thinking back of how many relationships I know where people have said to me, oh, my husband's mom doesn't like me. Why? Why doesn't your husband's mom like you? My mother-in-law doesn't like me. Why doesn't your mother-in-law like you? Well, when my husband or my boyfriend at the time and I were dating, this happened or that happened, or she heard a rumor about me. And it's so sad that 15, 20 years later, we're seeing grown adults who have something in their minds that they perceived someone to be like, or something that they heard about someone that they're keeping right in their mental capacity, right in the front of the brain, that's keeping them from building a relationship with someone who they should. And while we're looking at the outside, look at the inside. How many of us have people who we probably went to school with and we run into them and something that they did in school, something that they said in school, some behavior, some rumor that was started with them, some undesirable behavior, something that they did, we still, years later, remember that person for doing that. We haven't renewed our minds about who that person is. That person may have changed, asked for forgiveness, gone on to repent, make a good life for himself or herself, but in our minds, we're still holding that person to who they were in high school. We're still holding that person to who they were in college. We're still holding that person to the mistake that they did. When we're renewing our minds, these are all things that we need to consider. How do I then stop thinking beyond my limited perspective of a situation or beyond my limited perspective of someone and change that thinking? But what I've observed is a lot of times it's hard for us to renew our mind for our circumstances and renew our minds when it comes to others because we haven't renewed our minds when it comes to ourselves. We may have been the victim of something terrible that may have happened. We may have been the victim of some form of abuse or some form of neglect or something bad that happened. And we continue to hold that against ourselves. See, if we can't renew how we think about ourselves, it's going to be hard for us to renew how we think about others. If we are still holding on to things that we did, maybe we were not the victim. Maybe we were the perpetrator, right? Maybe we did something bad in our past. Maybe we did something that we thought at the time was unforgivable. And we've asked for forgiveness of everybody else, but we haven't asked for forgiveness for ourselves, of ourselves. Are you able to forgive yourself and renew your mind, renew the thinking, renew the things that you think about yourself negatively? To replace the negative self-talk, to replace the doubt, to replace the fear, to replace those things that you say to yourself, speak to yourself daily, so that you can renew your thinking about yourself, so that you can renew your thinking about yourself, which allows you to renew your thinking about others, which allows you to expand your thinking, which allows you to change your circumstances because you're renewing how you feel about yourself, you're renewing how you think about others, and then you're renewing how you're able to solve problems. If you can renew how you solve problems and how you think about things, then you're able to renew your thinking. Karen says, that's a great point regarding replacing negative talk. Absolutely, Karen. Because if we in our minds see ourselves as the teenager who messed up 2 decades ago, and when we look in the mirror, that's what we see. And when we put on our business suits, even though we've elevated in the workplace and even though we've elevated in society, if when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we still see the person who made those mistakes years ago, those are the same eyes that we're going to look at everybody with. We're going to look at other people the same way. We're going to look at our loved ones the same way. We're going to look at our spouses and our husbands and our wives the same way. Because we're not able to forgive ourselves. We're not able to renew how we feel about ourselves. It's going to be hard for us to forgive others and renew how we feel about them. What are some things that you can do to renew your mind? What are some things that you can do to actually change your perspective, to change the way that you think about things? Well, first off, remember that you control your mind. Nobody else does. You control your mind. So you control what you think. And controlling your own mind is one of the hardest things ever. Why? Because people don't like to think. People don't like to think. People, we hire people. When we have money, we hire people to think for us. We hire people to think about solutions for us. Whether in our personal lives, on the job, we don't like to think. But in order to renew our minds, we have to think. The first thing we have to think of is the fact that we control this. I control my mind, you control your mind, everybody, we control our own minds. Take control of your mind, number one. Number two, if there are perspectives that you need to change, you need to identify them. What do I think negatively about? What is it that I think negatively about that I would like to replace with something different? Write it down if you can. Is it that you have negative self-thought? Is it that you're really judgmental? Are you really holding on to things from the past? Are you really not letting go of people who've asked for forgiveness? What is it within your own mind and your own thought process that you need to work on to think differently? Write it down. What are the things now that you want to think better about, right? Do you need to gain self-confidence? Do you need to be a little bit more assertive with yourself? Do you need to change your perspective by getting a coach or getting a mentor? Do you need to probably go to someone else who you look up to, someone else who is more accomplished than you? First, think about the things in your mind that you would like to change, things that you know are sabotaging your ability to move forward, things that you know are keeping you back. But oftentimes there are things we don't know what we don't know. We don't. You know, we can come up with a list of things that we want to change, negative self-thought. We could come up with things we want to change, but oftentimes we don't know what we don't know. Look at things in your life where you're just not making any progress. That's another way to look at how to change your mind, your thought process, and renew your mind. Where in your life you are just simply not making progress? Where in your life are you stuck? Where in your life are you experiencing the same pains over and over again? Where in your life are you experiencing the same negative emotions over and over again? Where in your life are you experiencing the same negative circumstance over and over again? Think about it. Write it down. Write it down. Why? Again, we have to take ourselves deeper than the everyday thoughts that we've had. Oh, I've been trying to do this for years and I haven't gotten through. And the easiest thing to do is to blame somebody else. I haven't gotten through because of this. The easiest thing to do is to come up with excuses. That's the easiest thing to do. But what I want you to do as you go through this process of renewing your mind is to hold yourself accountable. All right? Hold yourself accountable. You've been working on whatever this thing is for so many years. Why didn't you get it done? Don't blame anybody. Don't blame the time. And don't blame your parents. And don't blame that you didn't have help. And don't blame that you didn't have money. And renew your mind. Hold yourself accountable. Be totally honest and transparent with yourself and write it down. What am I doing that is preventing me from getting to my next level? What am I doing that is preventing me from actually accomplishing my goals? What am I doing that is preventing me from reaching my objectives? It's all up to you. Write it down. What did I do in the past to actually reach my objectives or reach my goals? Now, how can I look at it differently? Now you've already identified what it is you need to do. You want to reach this goal. You've already identified the reasons why you haven't reached this goal. How can you expand your thinking? How can you then renew your mind so that you can be sure to accomplish it? See, any goal that you've had, somebody else has accomplished. Any single goal. Any single thing you want to do, somebody else has accomplished it. So if somebody else has done it, that means that you can do it too. And if you can do it too because they've done it, then maybe they can help you out. Maybe they can provide some help. Maybe they can provide some advice. Now, are you going to be bold enough, aggressive enough, and take your life into your own hands and seek help? Or are you just going to give yourself another excuse? See, the thing about life is that life is short. Life is short. Well, not necessarily that life is short But we never feel that we have enough time. We never feel that we have enough time with the people that we love and everybody who is here on earth. We want to stay longer to be able to love the people who we, our family, our friends, the people who we live here with, the people that we care about. But if you don't renew your mind to accomplish your goals, one day you're going to reach the end of your life, the end stage where you're going to say to yourself, my God, here it is that I've never accomplished what I've wanted to do. I've never done the things that I wanted to do. I wasn't aggressive enough in accomplishing my goals. I wasn't aggressive enough in doing what makes me happy. And at that time, sometimes it's too late. Some people have a second chance of life. Some people don't. What are some things that you can do to renew your mind? What are some things that you currently do to renew your mind? See, when I first started to learn about the mind and how powerful it was, I think it was as a child. See, my Uncle Pat used to tell these scary stories. And when Uncle Pat would tell these stories, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep in the night. So I would be laying up in my bed and my mind would be thinking of all these things. He would tell us, Uncle Pat was from Trinidad, and then he would tell us all these stories, and my family's from Dominica. And then, oh my God, when the stories mixed about all these things, I couldn't sleep. And then I would actually, be seeing these things and I would be terrified. And at a young age, I realized that if I can push those thoughts out of my mind and I can replace them with something else, then I could get a good night's rest. So I had to take control. So that's when I started to realize the power of the mind. When I was a little girl faced with nightmares and staying up all night because I couldn't really fall asleep after hearing scary stories. But as I grew a little bit older, one of the books that I started to read, the first book I actually read on mind and the power of the mind was called The Power of the Subconscious Mind. And I don't remember the author right now. And I'm going to mention some books. I may not remember the author. I'll try to go back if you guys want to go ahead and comment. I can go back and list it and look it up. The Power of the Subconscious Mind was one of the first books that I read about how powerful the mind is and how we can control everything that we want. We can control our happiness. We can control our riches. We can control every objective that we want to achieve. We can be happy by controlling our mind. How do we do that? If you're thinking negative thoughts, replace it with positive thoughts. It's easier said than done. It is easier said than done, but that's a way to do it. When negativity creeps up in your mind, whether it's about yourself, whether it's about someone else, whether it's about your situation or circumstance, quickly replace it. Replace it with something positive, something uplifting, something that can actually make you feel good, but make sense for you that you can probably take action on so that you can be in a better place than you are right now. So the power of the subconscious mind. The other one that I read recently that was really good was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Think and Grow Rich talks about how we can improve our wealth simply by the way we think. And then recently I also listened to one on YouTube. I think it was by Napoleon Hill again, As a Man Thinketh. Those three books are books that I've read or listened to about how we can renew our mind and transform our thinking. And we need to renew our mind all the time. Every day that you go along, you should try to grow a little bit. How do you grow a little bit? Read a couple pages in a book. Every night. Make up your mind that every night I'm going to read a couple pages in a book so that I can change my circumstance. You're not going to advance from where you are now to where you want to be if you don't open your mind, because your mind controls everything. If you want to be rich, you have to open your mind to learn how to do something differently. If you want to have a good relationship and you're not in a good relationship, you have to open your mind on how relationships work. You have to open your mind on how you can be a better person. Whatever it is that you want to do in life, if you want to get that degree, it's not going to happen by registering for classes and paying every year. You have to show up and you have to put in the work. But before you get to that point, you have to open your mind and renew your mind about the steps that are necessary. Showing up in class, making sure that you participate, pay attention so that you can pass. In order to get to anything that we want in life, we have to open our minds, we have to renew our minds, and it starts right here. So those are some books that you can actually look at, that you can actually read, that can help in that process, that has worked for me. What are some of the things that you have done when it comes to renewing the mind? What are some of the things that you have done or actions that you have taken to actually help to renew your mind? And I would say this: if you have a smartphone, there is no reason under the sun that you should not be learning something every day. None. Because you know what? There's this thing called Google, right? And anything that we don't know, we can type it in. As a matter of fact, there's this thing called Google Home now, right? From the ads that I see on television, where it's in your home. You just say a question out loud and it looks it up for you. It finds the answers for you. So you see, I spoke about thinking, right? People don't like to think. So we have all these different things to help us think, to help us learn, to help us grow. They're at our fingertips. There's no excuse for you not to learn, not to grow, not to renew your mind. If you have a smartphone that you're paying for monthly, there are books that you can download, Audible. There are books that are actually read and narrated out loud that you can purchase, that you can download, and when you're on your daily commute in the morning, in the afternoon, whatever, you can listen to it on the way to work. If you have 30 minutes in your car every morning and 30 minutes in your car every afternoon, there's no reason why you can't read a book or listen to a book a week. None. There's no reason why you can't expand your mind, expand your thinking, and renew your mind to get to the other step, to get to the other part, to get to the other point. If there's somebody that you admire, that you would like to be like, and you don't know how to, before the world wasn't as connected as it is right now, right? It wasn't. So there might be, you may not know of somebody else who's doing something that you like or you want to do. Right now, there's YouTube and Google Live, Facebook Live, and all these different things where we are seeing people who are doing great things that we aspire to be. Reach out to them. There's no reason for you to feel stuck when there's somebody doing what you know you were born to do. And all it takes is for us to humble ourselves sometimes, open our mind, and ask for help. There's this thing called LinkedIn. So if you're career-wise and you want to reach out to someone who's doing what you've done, who's doing what you want to do, and who's done it very good, no reason that you can't send somebody an inbox message. I mean, we use technology for all sorts of things, right? We slide into people's DMs for all sorts of things. They're at your fingertips. It's at your fingertips to renew your mind. It's at your fingertips to change your thinking. It's at your fingertips to continue learning. It's at your fingertips to continue growing. You have the power to do it. You have the power. It starts here. Recognize that in order to be all you want to be, in order to reach your highest potential, in order to do that thing and fulfill your purpose, what you were put here on earth to do, you have to expand your mind. You're not going to get to that level if you are still thinking as a 17-year-old and you're 27. You're not going to get to that level if you're thinking as a 30-year-old and you're 35. You're not going to get to that level if your mind hasn't grown since you were in high school. You're not going to get to that level if you don't put in the work to realize that it all starts here with your mind, with the renewal of your mind over and over and over again until you are able to reach your goals. And when you reach your goals, guess what you got to do? You got to renew your mind again. And when you reach your other goals, you have to keep renewing your mind. You have to keep expanding your thoughts. You have to keep expanding your thinking and growing and being around people who are 10 times better than you and being around people who know 10 times more than you and reading a book. Pick up a book, for goodness sake. Go Google something, read a white paper, follow up on some research, pick up a magazine article, renew yourself, renew your mind so that you can learn, so that you can grow, and most importantly, so that you can reach your highest potential. At the end of our lives, we're not really going to look back just at the things that we've accumulated, material things. The regrets that we have when we reach the end of our lives are usually twofold. It's regarding relationships that we didn't grow and relationships that we didn't cultivate, relationships that we didn't manifest for whatever reason. And it's regarding things that we wanted to do that we never did and we never accomplished. And the only way that we're going to accomplish those things and grow to those things and live in our purpose and help with our relationships, because the things that we read about and study about and learn about can also be about improving our relationships. But the only way that we're going to do that is through renewal of our minds. So please tell me, what can you do this spring? I'm saying this because it's spring, but you don't have to do it only at spring. What are you going to do this spring to renew your mind? What are you going to do this spring to advance beyond where you're at right now? What are you going to do right now to change your mindset if you haven't changed your mindset about some of the relationships you've had with people so long and you still remember them as they were 10 years ago? What are you going to do to change your perspectives on bad situations that you've encountered over and over and over again? What are you going to do to make sure that you can reach the objectives that you've set for yourselves? That's my question. What are you going to do? And I hope tonight that you take on this challenge and you take on this advice to renew your minds in order to reach our next level, in order to reach our best level, in order to reach our highest potential, in order to break down barriers, in order to get out of bad circumstances and bad situations, in order to be all that we need to be in life. We must renew our minds. So join me in renewing our minds, first by realizing there's no one else that controls your mind but you. You control your mind. Expand it. Find a coach. Find a mentor. Find somebody you admire. Read a book. Listen to a book. Read a white paper. Travel somewhere else different. But do whatever it takes to renew your mind so that you can continually learn, grow, and reach your fullest potential. Thank you guys. I love you. Thank you for joining me. Go ahead and comment. I always go back through the comments. Send me a message, inbox. You guys inbox me all the time. Send me an email if you need to. Have a blessed night. Renew your mind. Love you guys.